All right, and we're live. Thank you everyone for watching, and for those listening back later on, thank you as well. Tonight, we discuss the case of missing person Judith Brown, who disappeared April 6, 1977 from New York. We're joined by her cousin Julian, who's been working tirelessly as an advocate and investigator for his missing relative. Julian, welcome to Locating the Lost.
Hey Travis, thank you for having me. How's everything?
It's going. So, if you don't mind, so as I mentioned, you're her cousin. Now, are you first cousins, or what is that relationship?
Judy is my cousin once removed. So she's my mother's first cousin.
You know, it's just recently I understood what once removed means. I was watching something on TV and I actually had to Google it.
Yeah, I had to Google it too. I was like, because in my family, like we have a lot of cousins. So she was just one of my cousins for the longest time. And then finally I had figured it out.
Yeah. All right. So if you don't mind, now I know you're younger than me, so you probably weren't around in 1977 when she disappeared. What has your family told you about your cousin Judith?
What my family has told me about Judy, I was born in 82, like you said, and I wasn't around in 77, but a lot of my family, particularly like my mother and other cousins, first cousins of Judy's, they all describe her to me as a very young, curious kind of girl. She was always very, very kind and very, very, very nice person, in terms of how she was as a kid. And I don't think in her early years, I think she had a very conventional childhood, if I could say, but when she started to reach her early teenage years is when she started to show some issues with her mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think in my family, like when Judy was 8, her father had been hit by a drunk driver, and that was in 1965, and he went headfirst into a tree. And after that happened, he was never really the same. He couldn't really work. He was on disability, and I think, it also changed, like having a traumatic brain injury like that. I think it just changed his dynamic with the entire family as well. Seeing somebody who goes from being your father to somebody who was bedridden, had a hard time speaking. I think that was a really big trauma for her and her family. And
she wasn't an only child, right?
No. She was one of 8. She was the third. She was the third oldest.
Right.
It's the best way to put it. Yeah. She had 5 sisters and 2 brothers. So she had 2 siblings that were a few years older than her. And yeah, I think after that happened, a lot of the parenting that was going on from the older siblings to the younger siblings, it really started to fall on the older siblings of the 8, because they ranged in age from like, I think the range in age between them is like 13 years from the oldest to the youngest, so like, one of them is 18, the other one's 5, which
Wow.
which is a pretty big difference. I mean, actually, I grew up that way kind of too. My sister's 12 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. So, I had my own fill of taking care of kids and helping my mom out with all that stuff,
Right.
But she had 5 younger siblings, which was just a lot. And she graduated high school in 75, where she would have been about 17, 18, actually probably 17, because her birthday's in November. And I think she was just taking care of a lot of her siblings at home, and things were getting very difficult. And at some point, Judy's family decided they were going to move to Kansas, and that was in 1976. They ended up moving to Kansas because my uncle who was in the accident, my great uncle,
Right.
like he wasn't able to get the jobs he was looking for, and they had inherited a farm in Kansas. So the rest of the family that was all together, that were still young, they all went to Kansas. But Judy was starting college, and she decided she wanted to stay in New York.
So who did she? I mean, she was still how old at this time? 18.
Yeah, she was 18.
Did she stay with someone? Or did she live on her own?
That's how like my side of the family comes into the picture. What happened is she was staying with my grandmother and all her kids in her house, because they were still in New York. Meanwhile, her family. So my grandmother was like, "Of course you can stay with us if you're going to be going to school and this and that." So my grandmother helped Judy out, let her stay in the house. But she didn't end up staying very long. Maybe a year at most, if even. I know she completed 1 year of school. But eventually, what ended up happening is one of my aunts, one of Judy's cousins, ended up getting a phone call one day from the college, basically saying like that Judy was having some kind of attack, and that somebody needed to come to the school to come get her. And I guess back in those days, instead of being able to like ascertain what was going on and maybe call her an ambulance or something, they called one of our relatives instead. So the relative went to go pick up Judy, and they were able to find a ride from one of the professors who was driving them to different hospitals to see if they could find Judy some help. My aunt said that she had found Judy underneath the desk having some sort of panic attack, or something was going on with her that just wasn't the normal for Judy. Obviously, if she was under a desk. And they went to try to take her to a couple of hospitals, but the first hospital they went to was on a strike. So the second hospital they came to was Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. And, at that point, I think Judy was just tired of being driven around, and she just wanted help. So she just said, "I'll just check in here. I don't care." And my aunt tried to say to her, "Listen, that's not a very good place for you. I'm a nurse. Like, take it from me. Like, maybe we'll send you to a different hospital." But like, Judy didn't want to wait. So that was on August 3rd of 1976. And then, she stayed in Creedmoor for like about a day or two, 24, 48 hours. And then my grandmother and my grandfather went to pick her up and transport her to a better facility, Hillside Hospital. But in those 2 days that she spent in Creedmoor, she met this man, Richard, and I'll bring him up again later. But she meets this guy, and she was only there for like a day or two, and I'm like, what are the chances? A lot of what I have, a lot of the notes that I have about like what happened and different parts of the timeline, I get from letters that Judy had written back then to her mother. And I was able to put it together because like once her mother started to get a little bit older and people were moving her things around, they found these letters, and eventually they made their way over to me, and I was reading these letters, and it really helped me to make a timeline of like what was going on, like step by step, you know. Um,
So yeah, you're actually really fortunate that you were able to locate those and be able to use those for a timeline, because then I'm aware of some of the stuff that she says in these letters, but it's a lot for you, right? Like there's a lot of information in there that you gleaned.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, you know. And I also wonder about the letters that I've never seen, you know. I don't know which ones were lost over time, and that. Sure. But yeah, I was able to recover a lot of really old documents, you know. Even some of her college documents I was able to recover that my family still held on to. I think because, like, even though they had a hard time, you know, looking for her, my family always had this thing in their head, like these documents or these things might be important, you know. So yeah, you know, and you know, and like I said, they really helped me build like an idea of what Judy was like, but also the timeline behind what happened. You know, and after she leaves that, you know, first facility, she goes to another hospital, and that's where she kind of gets the care that she needs. Like she's in there for like another 3 or 4 months until she's released in I'd say about November of that year. But okay. But the strange part is after she gets out in November, and she was staying inpatient, you know, she started dating this guy, Richard, who she had met at Creedmoor Hospital. And, you know, he had a very weird and violent past. So, you know, she was 19, and this guy that she's meeting and she starts dating he's 31. Now, I'm not going to say that that's like, you know, too old, too young, but I think, you know, for a 19, like for her
age, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. For a 19-year-old, it's significant age difference, you know, especially for her, because I don't think she ever had a boyfriend before this particular guy either.
Oh, wow.
So this is like, you know, her first boyfriend, and she was very, I'd say she was very head over heels for him. And I think it's possible that maybe the feelings were reciprocated. I mean, you know, I wasn't there, I don't know, but you know, but certainly from the way he treated her and the way she sounded in these letters, that like she did care about him. But the story behind him is that this guy, his name is Richard Riesenberg. He in 1971, in January of 1971, he had killed his wife and his child.
Unreal.
You know, what happened is, you know, they believe like one afternoon he came home from work, they had some sort of argument or something, he must have killed her, waited till the next morning, got ready for work, went to work, and pretended that he came home and that they were already, like somebody had broken into the house and that they had been already killed. So, you know, after that.
So the type of guy you want to bring home to your mom and dad, right?
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, like in terms of anything that like he may have told Judy about what happened, like I don't know if he ever really told her, you know. But you know, because it was very easy. I think it was very easy for him to say, "Oh yeah, I'm in the hospital like you for something," you know, but not really specify exactly what that could have been, you know.
Right. So to you and your family's knowledge, she did not know what he had done prior to his hospitalization.
No, we didn't. None of us like know that. I mean, it's a slight possibility, but none of us like have ever known that from the letters or anything that she said, you know. But yeah, so what happened after that is, after they caught him, he he ended up being tried and stuff like that by a judge. It was a bench trial, and somehow they were able to find him not guilty, not guilty by way of insanity. So instead of, and that was a very popular thing in the 70s back then, at that point in time, like the whole insanity pleas, and essentially instead of sending him to a prison, they sent him to the psychiatric facility for, I guess, an undisclosed amount of time. I mean, he had already been there for at least 5 years when he met my cousin in 1977. So
Wow.
yeah, so he had been in that facility, and yeah, I mean, after he met her,
Real quick, I got a question here or a comment from, I think that's Lisa Joe. She recognized that her family was worried, and she said that she knew what she was doing, basically.
Yeah. In one of the letters, she went to like assure her mother that that she was confident that everything would turn out for the better, and that she knew what she was doing. At that time, I don't know if she had planned to run away or not, because basically at some point, they were changing the administration over at Creedmoor Hospital, and once this guy that she was dating, Richard, found out that they were going to transfer him somewhere else where he was going to be on like a lockdown. He ran off with my cousin.
So he escaped the hospital?
Yeah. He had a lot of ground privileges at Creedmoor, because I found out through my investigations that like his psychiatrist was, and this is going to sound crazy, but his psychiatrist was extorting the family for money. So basically they were saying, I'll say what you want me to, like for court purposes or for other purposes, as long as you pay me separately for these appointments that were, that I'm doing with Richard for psychiatry. So this psychiatrist, had been extorting the family, so that they could kind of get the results that they wanted in court, is how I kind of found out about all this, and that was just through a lot of different things that I had looked at over the years.
Actually, now's a good time to mention that your job is investigator, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I've been an investigator since 2013, so let's see, 12 years now, and I work as an investigator for criminal defense in New York City, and so I'm familiar with different aspects of investigations, and how to go about working on a case to an extent. I don't have the same resources and at the same time same permissions that law enforcement has. So there's a lot of things I can't do. I can try to talk to as many people as I guess it's the same for law enforcement. We can try to talk to as many people as we want, but in the end, if they don't want to talk to us, they don't have to.
Right. Exactly. So that's cool. Like that. What made you get into this field, Julian?
It was very accidental. I mean, I went to college for archaeology, and I ended up working in investigations. I can say I ended up I started off working for some PI firm, like doing small little jobs for them, and it just kind of built from there. And then I got this job with this law firm, and I've been there for the last 12 years. So
awesome.
I enjoy the work, and and it really helped me with be able to investigate my cousin's disappearance also,
Oh, someone says, Owen says, hi, Julian.
Oh, hi. Hi, guys. So, yeah, so that's kind of like my background, for working on these things. I think initially the approach that I wanted to take was to get law enforcement to interview some people about different things before people passed away. But over the last couple of years, like, they kind of not so subtly kind of let me know that they weren't necessarily interested in investigating. So I had to take it upon myself to interview and talk to a lot of people that ended up actually passing away, that I'm glad I went and I did that.
What did law enforcement believe, or actually, like, who reported her missing, first of all?
My family did. Back in the 70s, law enforcement was aware that she was missing, pretty much immediately, because once she disappeared with Richard, the FBI started looking for him, and they knew very quickly that he was with a girl. It's mentioned in some of the newspaper articles that he disappeared with his girlfriend, or some 19-year-old, or however they put it. But it was very dismissive, and they never even mentioned her name,
Wow.
But they were very aware of it really quickly, and that's when my family finally became aware that she disappeared. It was actually when the FBI came to my grandmother's house to tell her, we're looking for this guy, and we know that your niece, disappeared, with him. Do you know where your niece is, or where he is, and they asked my family a bunch of questions and stuff, but my family didn't really know anything at the time, and
we got a comment here from, I think this is Lisa Joe still. Law enforcement only wanted to find her so they could find him. Is that how the family feels too?
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty much what happened, is like, they were focused on finding him, and, they came to interview my family only because they wanted to use her as a means to finding him, because in their eyes, she wasn't a missing person. She was a voluntary missing person. They couldn't even call her a runaway because she was 19. So they just kind of lumped her in with that. Okay, well, she's voluntary missing, but she's an adult. She can do what she wants. And they never really put the time in to look for her. I mean, I tried to FOIA the FBI for some files regarding what they did to find Richard, but they got back to me and they had told me no for like a bunch of different reasons, and it was kind of silly. I mean, like, they cited privacy reasons, and I'm like, what privacy reasons? Like, this is like somebody they're not even like looking for at this point anymore.
Right. And what else is going on in New York at this time frame when she went missing?
Well, yeah, it was kind of a chaotic summer. I mean, I believe in 77 they had a big blackout that summer too. There was like a blackout of 77 in New York, and also at the time, Son of Sam was the major case that was really going on between 76 and 77, like that year between the two summers. And actually at some point, the police had went to the hospital, Creedmoor, while Richard was still a patient there, and was actually asking the staff members there, like, do you think there's anybody in here that would fit the description of somebody who sounds like this, Son of Sam person? And one of the nurses or one of the aides there basically said, yeah, this guy Richard, he killed his family and this and that. So the police took an interest in him in a short period of time, but they determined that it wasn't Richard, even though he was still, going around the city, and the thing that really stinks about a lot of what Richard was doing prior to his disappearance is that he had money. He came from a family that had some money, but he also had some of his own money, which was he got what is that called? A life insurance from his wife's death
that he killed.
Yes.
Unreal.
Yes. Crazy. Like, he got 2/3 of it, and her family got 1/3 of it, because he was found insane. They didn't, like, he wasn't held responsible for it, so there was some loophole that basically he was able to get those funds.
Real quick, Stephanie Howe says, for privacy reasons, sounds like they know that she is alive, or maybe she meant he.
Or either.
Maybe she is still alive.
It's a possibility, the privacy reasons I think they were citing had to do with what is that called? HIPAA, like HIPAA laws, like, because like he was never declared dead. So I think they could just say no to me because of HIPAA laws and the hospitals and all that stuff, because they both could potentially be alive today, but he would be in his like late 70s and she would be in her like mid 60s,
Kayla says, I think it's because they botched the investigation. And then she also says HIPAA didn't exist at the time.
Yeah, but they might have been, I guess they might, I don't know how the law works, like if it's retroactive, but if you're asking
now for information, then they could use it, right?
Yeah, I'm asking now, so I don't know if they're like, well, again, people have rights now to their privacy.
They're hiding behind it,
information. So after, after they both disappeared together, there was a phone call at some point that did come through to my to one of my family members, Judy's oldest sibling, and when she asked her, where are you, what's going on, Judy basically said, she's like, I'm okay, basically that she was okay, but she didn't stay on the phone long and she hung up, and there was no contact from Judy ever again after that. So it's just crazy because I've tried to talk to law enforcement now, in terms of like helping me investigate her case and doing a couple of small things in order to make sure that she's like advocated for, for instance, like getting her onto NCMEC because she was 19 at the time. But they don't they haven't really done that for me yet, even though like I've went to their office many times and I bothered them, I call them, I know the detective's name. It's definitely a fight that I know that a lot of people go through for their missing loved ones. That it's just so mind numbing when you keep getting kind of like pushed back,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see if we have another question here. Kate Tads, I guess. But if he As for FOIA, now, if the law is backtracked, it would fall under HIPAA due to Richard's medical conditions or records.
Yeah. So,
somebody else says, Kayla says you can contact NCMEC directly. The police do not have to report her to them.
I can try again. But like in the past when I've called NCMEC, they said they've told me that like law enforcement has to refer, has to be the one to refer the individual to them. That's what I was told, but that could not be true. But because a lot of the time people would give me answers or say different things to me that I found out later weren't true, which is really frustrating,
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna post in the comments here. This is a link tree for Judy's case with. Are you the one that put this together? The link tree?
No, my friend Brandy from Evaporate the Missing put it together.
Oh, okay, so thank you, Brandy. Awesome. And it's got links to different podcasts and everything that her case has been covered on, as well as different news articles and things on there. So I don't understand why, like, she basically just got swept aside, right? Like, then seems like it's not important to them. And like somebody else said, they wanted to find him more than they wanted to find her.
They wanted to find him, and from 77 to 83, I at least have evidence up until 83 that they were still trying to look for Richard, because when his father died, the FBI went to the funeral to see if they could find him. He didn't show up, of course. But since the 70s, when the FBI first came to my grandmother's house to say, hey, do you know where these two are? Law enforcement never contacted my family again. So all of those intervening years were just kind of like quiet. We're just like quiet dead years, and it was difficult for my family to really do what they can to, to advocate for her really at the time, because her immediate family was all in Kansas, and you remember what it was like, back in the day, like if you're trying to call out of state, paying like $100 just to call Kansas, from Kansas to New York.
Exactly.
It was like that, and I think my family didn't have a lot of money to be able to do that, to call law enforcement, to constantly write them letters. It was, and they had five. Well, they had seven. Then they had 7 other kids. And then on my side of the family, I think they just trusted that law enforcement was doing what they were doing to find them, and didn't really ask too many questions, because that's how I was raised too. I don't feel this way anymore, but I was raised in that sort of way where it's like, you don't question law enforcement. You just do what they say, or you just listen to them, because I don't want to say they're the good guys. They're the ones who are supposed to be doing everything.
That's how we were raised, right?
Yeah,
we believed that they were take care of shit, and they weren't.
Yeah, you just kind of lived under this belief, and then for all these years later to find out that wasn't the truth, especially in a lot of these cases, it's just very discouraging,
Yeah. Got another comment here. It's so insane that they've never located Richard or Judy after all these years.
Yeah. They I can't believe it that they never found either of them. I think a lot of things at this point make it difficult in terms of the amount of time that has passed, and what certain agencies are able to do. But the few things that I want to ask law enforcement to do, like I had said with Nick Mick, or with or with Jane Doe's and other stuff like that, it's not a big ask, and they still don't want to be bothered with anything I have to ask them for. So it's been very difficult to get her the attention, so that law enforcement will do something that will help the case in any sort of way.
Right. It's awful that so many families are like that too. They're the driving force behind their loved ones. And it's not their job. It should be the police department, that whatever agency is covering the case, they should be the ones handling it, not, people like you trying to just get answers for the family.
Yeah, and that's why, I try, like we talked a little bit, before the show, that's why I try my best to, help other families, in with their cases, as I can, because I know a lot of people can use the help, and if there's any skill set that I have or anything that I can do that will help some other family with their missing loved one, I'm gonna help out. And fortunately, a lot of the things that have happened, that's gotten me further along in this case, and really helped me to understand what happened to Judy and or what likely happened, and what happened before she disappeared, was all due to a lot of other people helping me. It had nothing to do with law enforcement, unfortunately. And I don't mean to sound like I'm bashing. It's just that's just the reality.
Yeah. No, you're stating the reality, like you said. Thank you, Kim, for those kind words. Shelley says, "I'm praying you get answers." And then Lisa says, "I always say the only thing active about their cases is us."
Yeah. That was the Lisa that's there in the comments. That's the same one I was telling you about before the show. With the case that she works on, and it's very similar. You just get stuck at this steel door that of law enforcement, and it's just closed, and you could bang on it all you want, but sometimes, a lot of the time, nobody has anything to say.
It's awful. So what do you think happened to Judy and Richard?
Well, for me, I think because they've never turned up, personally, my opinion is that their situation, I think, went in one of two ways. And I'm just going to be as blunt as I can here, but either I think that he killed her, and then at some point himself, somewhere where they weren't found. I don't know where that would. I have no idea where that would be, but and the other possibility that I've thought about is that maybe they both decided that they didn't want to run anymore. You know what I'm saying? And maybe they had some sort of pact with each other, and took their own lives together. Outside of that, just there being no trace, nobody finding them, nothing, I'm trying to, I've been constantly looking at Jane Doe's to see if any match, or if I can get them excluded in NamUs and other places, and it's just been it's just been a journey. Obviously nothing is matched, but there's so many people out there who are missing. I don't expect that statistically that who knows what could happen.
Do we have any idea where, or areas that Richard might have ties to, or she might have ties to, that they could have gone to?
Well, The short answer to that, I'm gonna say, is no. But in talking to some people throughout like me and other people helping me investigate, they did mention some other places that were possible. You know, there was a prank phone call that had come in at some point from California to the hospital, claiming to be Richard, saying, ha ha ha, I'm in California, and then he hung up the phone, and and I figured that was too specific of a prank for somebody to do.
Yeah, why would anyone do that?
Why would anyone do that? Like, he wasn't even a well-known criminal or anything like that. So, do I believe
one
that
point,
was him?
Sorry, at one point, did law enforcement look at him as possibly the Son of Sam killer?
Before he escaped, it must have been sometime around then, in like 1976 to 77, in that range of time that he was dating my cousin.
Yeah, crazy.
And one of the other people at the, one of the other people that worked at the hospital said, I really think it could be this guy Richard. He killed his wife, he killed his son. I don't, who else is he capable of killing? And they looked into him, but they obviously it wasn't. But sorry.
Oh my gosh, thought that was an earthquake or something. Oh, now we lost you.
On a sec.
No, you're good.
Sorry, my phone.
So if you have tips, you can contact the NYPD Missing Person Squad at 212-694-7781. Judith Brown, missing April 6, 1977, from New York, New York. You're back.
Yeah, and even the day she went missing, like in my I'll tell you a little story. I was talking to one of my aunts, and she had a diary from the 70s that she hadn't really looked at in a while, and I said to her, could you look at the diary for these dates or whatever? So she actually had some dates around this particular period of time, in April of 77, and we were able to determine that, like, even her disappearance date, like the 6th, is not really accurate, because my aunt has in her diary as of the 13th that Judy was at my grandmother's house visiting one of my family members in the hospital.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And on top of that, it doesn't really make much sense either, because in the newspapers it says Richard disappeared on the 21st. So why wouldn't their disappearance date be the same if they ran away together?
Is that her release date from the hospital, maybe?
No.
No.
April, no, because as of April 6th, she was doing some outpatient stuff at that point, so she wasn't in a hospital anymore, but she was doing outpatient mental health services with Hillside Hospital.
So, is there anything else you want to say before we end?
I'm trying to think if I left anything out, really. I've just been investigating this, as of 2020. I think during the pandemic, it gave me more time to, like, look into things and talk to people.
Oh, right.
And I've been kind of building on that, and now I'm just really hoping I can just get the word out there, and enough to somehow put some pressure on law enforcement to help me with the few things that are left, that I think that we can actually try to do. I know there isn't too much. You can't do a search for somebody who just up and left, but and I understand that, but
they definitely could be doing more.
Yeah. So that's why I try to come onto YouTube as much as I can, or do podcasts, or even go to, like, different conventions, like CrimeCon if I can, because I want to make those connections with people, and maybe one day I'll just find the right person that says, you know what, like, let's do something about this. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll certainly help any way that we can here. And I know that you and I will probably keep in touch after this. I do want to talk about real quick what our case is next week. I'll just share that real quick. So next week we'll be covering the case of A.L. Reynolds, who went missing December 11th. I got that. I'm sorry. That's the day that we're doing it. December 17th, 2011, from Waterville, Maine. And we're going to be joined by Jack Fox, who's a statement analyst from the UK. So if you haven't seen anything that he's done before, it's really cool. Like he will pick apart people's statements and basically tell you if they're lying or if they're hiding something while they talk. So I did want to mention that before we end. And then, Julian, if there's anything that you can or we can do for you guys, or if there's anything you need us to share, or if you learn anything new, please make sure you keep in touch with us and let us know.
Yeah, I would just say to everybody, there's a lot of details for this case I didn't include today because of the amount of time that we had, because there's just so much, like, little tiny things. But in the link tree, it has more resources to different things with more information. So if anybody wants to take a look at that, please do so. And also, if you guys want to follow her Facebook page, it's also on the link tree as well.
I'll share that again now too. Let's see. So there's the link for the link tree. I'm not sure what's going on with Facebook. It looks like there's a lot of stuff not going to Facebook tonight. I only had about 12 comments on Facebook, and usually Facebook's our most commented place. So maybe something going on with that. But anyways, there's the link for Judith Anne Brown missing.
Yeah, and just thank you so much for for giving me the opportunity to talk about it and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird case. Like I said when we were talking before we went live, this is a case that could become a movie almost.
Yeah, I've been talking to one of my aunts about it, and I do think that we're thinking about writing a book about it. I don't have any experience with writing, but hey, she does, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully you guys get answers for Judy soon. Thank you so much, Julian, for joining us.
Yep, thanks for having me. Take care.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Good night.
Search for 5-year-old Taylor Williams led investigators to Alabama this week.
So we have some breaking news from Florida. An arrest has been made in connection.
After years of agony, a glimmer of hope for the family.
Investigators spent hours searching through this house off Pennsylvania Avenue.
What could be a major development in the search for missing Alabama teenager.
Tonight, a stunning twist in the search for Taylor.
Somebody out there knows something.
They want to lay him to rest their way, not by somebody else's way.